All right, continuing on, part 7. When we last left off, we successfully, what did we successfully do? Let me just look at my log. It was only last night. Okay, string of fudge into a local text file, transient collection. Okay, so now script has the line sets. So we need to see it appear in the UI, which it's not doing. Because all the code that would access the line sets has been commented out when we broke it. So we're going to rewrite that stuff to not access line sets as core data, but get its information from its NS dictionary JSON format. So let's just go through and got all these breakpoints enabled. Pretty much everywhere there's commented out code has a breakpoint. Let's see about this one. All right, it's the only one we're disabling because we've actually finished this, right? As far as we know, this works. I'm gonna leave this in here for now. Come back and pull these. Well, actually, yeah, we'll come back and remove these comments later, but we don't need the breakpoint because we know it works. Okay, so let's see what we get. I'm using the simulator so you can see what I'm doing. It's got a larger set of line sets. Okay, here we go. We don't need this breakpoint anymore. This was just when we were creating the empty object that we iterate through and add line sets to. Let's keep going. I think this is, oh, we got 2 elements. Okay, so last time we had this, it wasn't working. Okay, so that is an example right there. We can see 11 elements, 2 elements, so a bunch of line sets in this first script. We're going to disable that breakpoint. Actually, let's remove it. We don't need it. And we don't need the other one. We don't need this one. Let's get rid of them. Keep going. Okay, so here we've got some invalid JSON. We've already had this before. I'm not going to worry too much about it. It only hits that once. Okay. So we're going to go to scripts. Let's see what we get. Shared script. Let's do the one that was shared with, that I know has a bunch of line sets in it. So let's take a look at this one. In fact, we pulled that down from the, as you can see, I just pulled it down from the cloud. Now we're going to open it. And immediately, here we go. So right here, it was originally getting a flag about being synced, coming from the core data object. And this would be a local transient value because this doesn't make any sense on the back end, right? In fact, let's look at the original line set. Let's get rid of a script. Let's close a lot of this stuff down. Core data class, don't need that. Synchronizer. No, let's just close all this down except what we're looking at. Dupe. Okay, so yeah, this stuff's just in the way. So this dead code, as we can see, it's under the dead folder. Actually, let's go to the dead folder and open these other files. Moved all the line set stuff there. Okay, so the original core data class, core data properties. So obviously, this was originally the persisted data, which should match what comes from the back end. Is added offline? Probably not. Anyway, where were we? I don't like the way it does this. No. Where were we? Where's the breakpoint we're at? Yeah, this is great. Where were we? Now I just have a bunch of headers. Where was I actually at? Was I actually at in here? How do I find out where I am? Let's do a step in. Okay. Where's the stack? Oh, it's here. Okay. This is where we came from. All right. Line scener reader view. Let's bring this all the way over. Okay. Don't care about this. This has got almost nothing in it. Core data proper. Okay, so here was the issue right here. This is what got commented out. Is completely synced. So we should see this defined somewhere in here. Is completely synced. It's going to be in the, here's the core data set, core data class, core data properties, and the JSON parsing. There it is. It's completely synced. So this is a value not coming from the back end, obviously. Otherwise, it would be in the set of properties. So this is a local transient property. Actually, is this a property? No, this is a method. Let's find this. I have to do text because for some reason symbols doesn't work. No. Something about this project, or I mean, I can't imagine Xcode is this broken. But there's something about the arrangement of this project that makes most of the powers of the IDE to find things broken. I don't know whether it's because a lot of it's in Objective-C and others in Swift. I can't imagine that's the problem. Must be some other aspect about it that's preventing it from having its intelligence to be able to find stuff. Okay, so is completely synced, is completely synced. This is the implementation. And we get a thing called sync status. So this is just a method that returns a Boolean if a flag has a certain value. And here's sync status, which is yet another method. Okay, so this is a calculated function, it looks like. So here we've got is synced object. Is synced, has any updates on server. Synced, sync, sync, okay. So this is a classic, just spaghetti mangled state transition machine. Where we're basically saying if our state is this thing, then our state is really that thing. But if our state is this thing and that combination of that thing, then our overall state is that thing. This sort of stuff can really become messy. So what is synced object? I'm going to guess that's in the properties. Now there's an is synced. Whoop, sorry. Where were we? Back here. Is synced object. So is synced, notice this is a local variable, but there's also a non-local is synced. So that's potentially confusing right there. This is going to block this, which is a number, NS number reference. So this local bool is going to block any access to that. Well, obviously I'd have to say self, right? Like this. Here you go, right here. So originally, it was simply returning this value, and now it's got this thing called isSyncedObject. I'm guessing that's another method. So one of the things that's been broken with LineSet is the synchronization. When it gets renamed during synchronization, somehow we get a duplicate. So I'm sure the mess is somewhere in here. So this logic is not going to be preserved the way it is, and this is in dead code anyway, but I need to come up with my own approach. So let's go back to where we really need this. Why do we care about this? So this value, okay, so it's just trying to decide whether the button is enabled, whether or not this thing has been completely synced. If it hasn't, the button will not be enabled. The line scene button. So basically this part of the UI is going to say, look, if this thing isn't synchronized yet, I can't look at the line scenes related to these line sets. Okay. So really I should just have a function here. Yeah. And it's going to take more to figure out the exact, all the logic that's going to determine this. Let's go back to the original logic. So it has this notion of sync status cloud, sync status synced, sync status need update. These are all values. Let's see where this is. Find. Interesting. Sync constants, here we go. Sync status. Okay. Synced cloud need update. So what does each of these mean? Obviously synced means what's remote and what's local matches. Cloud means what's remote is newer, and then need update means what? So it looks like we have a duplicated function here. There's LineSet, line scene. I bet this looks the same. Yes. Script. That logic looks pretty much the same, doesn't it? Notice though, oh, this is interesting. It's not quite exactly the same. Here we're actually using our own variable, and here something happened. Is synced object was changed. So line scenes, line sets, and scripts all use this synchronization status, but not scenes themselves. That's interesting. This probably represents different generations of code. I could go back through the original Git history to see what's going on here. Yeah, why don't I do that? So this file, LineSet plus core data class. I happen to have the history of the original repo, so I could do a blame on this, hopefully, and see what we get. So let's see where my window is. I've got a lot of stuff here. It's going to be in here. There we go. All right, so Versal Pro. This is the original repo. We don't want commits. Let's just look at the actual code. And there we go. Source. That doesn't look right. Oh, master is not what we're on. KMP iOS. There we go. Okay, legacy. Oh, oops, up. We want dead. Dead. And what are we looking at again? LineSet plus core data class. Oh, it's because it's been moved over. I need to look at the. Well, actually, I'll look at where it was before this branch. So it's not going to be in dead. It's going to be in legacy. Core data. So we want to see LineSet plus core data class. Is it M? Yeah. This guy. Can we get a blame? Is blame gonna work? Display blame info. I hope it's not a problem because it's been moved and it can't track the history of the file. It's got quite a long history here. See, it goes all the way back to 2017. So why can't we get a blame? Using GitLab instead of GitHub. I also have this on GitHub. There's a blame. Okay. All right. We want this little guy down below. Huh. Why does this look different? Oh, this is line scene. I want line set. Wrong file. Line set. And it was under core data class. All right, try again. Blame. Oh, I gotta press blame up here. Why are there two buttons? Does GitLab have two sets of buttons? Blame, display blame info. Huh. I don't get it. Anyway, there it is right there. This looks like the commit. That's why commit histories are important. Sync indication for all views ongoing. Fixed highlights dead zone. The fact that the synchronization logic is intertwined with UI behavior is really convoluted. Question is, does it have to be that way? Is object added offline? Is added offline object? Is object is added offline object? Whew. And this goes back to, when was this done? 5 years ago, 2017, so quite a while before I came on board here. So let's see that LineSet core data class. Actually, this was already changed. This is just a rename. So this is changed prior to that. So we actually want to look at the file as of this time and then look at the blame. We actually want to look at the history as of this time and then look at the blame. So let's view this file. Let's look at its history. We want to go back to the previous version. Again, update synchronization. Okay. Now, a lot of work was done on synchronization. When your solution is complex, your amount of work to maintain it becomes really complex. This is what I want, right? This class, I want to view the whole file and then do a blame on it at this point so I can see its prior. Now let's do a blame. Let's blame. Now let's see when this was changed. Where is it? There it is there. So we can see over time, this has gone through a large number of changes. So we're just backtracking. And again, these are renames. So a lot of renames. I mean, I don't fault the developer for that. I do that a lot myself. I'm pretty bad at that. We have to keep going back. We want to see the history of this one line of code. That would be a nice feature. I wonder if there's a way to do that. To say, show me the history of this line and backtrack through all the commits where just that line changed, not the entire file. Of course, it has to use its logic to figure out when the line is the same line, which could be kind of a challenge. So this is kind of how I do it. Go through histories, pick the previous one. This is my objection with these really simplified sorts of commits. Syncs. Like, what are the differences here? I have to look at it. I have to read it to understand the differences. Why can't you explain to me what you need? Why you needed to do this separately? Most people do commits like this. I just prefer to be more detailed. All right, let's look at this guy. And we're going to keep digging back. I know it's just taking a lot of time, but I really want to understand why this is the way it is. Okay. This is not really showing that line changed, which is good. Now I can do the blame here. There's that line. Okay. So hopefully we're getting down to the commit where this was changed from using its own Boolean value to a separate variable. So there's something awkward here about line scenes that can't be treated in a general fashion the same way line scenes are, right? It uses its own Boolean. Script uses its own Boolean. But LineSet, at some point it was like, no, we can't use our own Boolean, we've got to do this. And this is, I'm guessing this is a method. Actually, let's find this. Is synced object is flags. So it's a function right here. So originally there was a property value that's keeping track of whether it's synced. And that was replaced with this function, which is probably what we'll see. Actually, that's where I should have looked at the commit. I should have looked at the blame where this gets created. What the hell is this? It simply takes, oh, it's just testing for nil. It's just saying nil is false. That's all it does. Is synced object. That's interesting. So there's a potential for this object to be, this member object to be nil. Huh. Let's see the why. What's the rationale here? Let's go back to this. And there we go. And we see that function is in LineSet plus flags. Oh, talk about spreading things out in a way that just makes them not cohesive at all. But I guess this was standard practice for Objective-C. What a terrible language to work in. I guess it was moved out at some point. Is LineSet synced? Let's just search this. Okay. But where is it? Where is it implemented? Was it not implemented in this commit? Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. I don't need to see the history of it. It looks to me all this is doing is just taking this value that was just the value from before. So instead of doing this, we're doing this. Why would you go all that way? Oh, it's a Swift. Right. This is probably when he started to switch over from Objective-C to Swift code. And he had to make these Object-C compatible methods. But who's calling this? Here, it's being called a bunch of places. I see. So we just extracted this out to its own method that was available to both Swift and Objective-C. That's all it does. And in the case of script and line scene, just didn't need to do that. So again, we're still looking at our own value, whether or not we're synced. Now, where does this actually get set to true? That's the important thing. Okay, so if I am synced, if it's true, and I have any updates on the server, that's what needs update means. Why would I say I'm synced if I have updates on the server? That seems like a contradiction. If this is true, this should not be true. This is one of the problems with having dependent. This breaks what's I think in data modeling is called first normal form or second. I'd have to look it up. But basically, it says never have the value of an attribute dependent on the value of another attribute. Right? So this is basically saying if this is true, but this other one is also true, well, this isn't really true if synced object means I'm synced, right? Or I've got, well, there's one normal form that says don't have an attribute dependent on the other, and there's another that says don't have essentially a value that depends on multiple attributes. And this looks like this kind of collision. We have these independent flags on the object itself, which is state. This is mutable state, a problem with mutable state. And this is a calculation saying our sync status is a calculated value of one of these three possibilities based on the values of these mutable state members. Has any updates on server, is a synced object. So if this is true and this is true, then we need to be updated even though we've been synced. If this is true and this is not true, then we are truly synced. But if we're not synced, we're saying cloud. Okay, so what does that mean? What does synced really mean here? We've got three ways of talking about synced. And this is a step that's going to be across the board, it's going to be done in a different way. I may still have to obviously preserve the same notion of synchronized or not synchronized. How do I do this without breaking its awkward logic that it currently all the code depends on? This is the house of cards, right? Which card do I pull out or change and try to see if the rest of it doesn't collapse under its own weight? Let's see where this is used. You're kidding me. This notion of has any updates on server exists only on this class in the entire project? Wow. That cannot be. Talk about dead code. I mean, yes, this was moved to dead code, but it doesn't look like anything makes any references anywhere to it. That can't be right. Has any updates on server? Huh. This might explain why the synchronization is broken. This one class uniquely has got some tracking variables that no other class uses. Special case. Let's do a find grep on .m file. I really need to modify my find grep to take a collection of a set of expressions or wildcards. right now I can only take one wildcard, so I modify that. It's a bash script. Eventually I want to rewrite all my bash scripts into something nicer, Python scheme. You know, I haven't really decided how I'm going to be doing all my scripting. But I don't like using shell. Understand it's universal mostly, but it's just such a crappy language. As soon as your scripts get complicated, it's a mess. And God, wildcard matching and substitution is just, I mean, you have to have ChatGPT for it to figure it out, how to do it right. Constant experimentation. Okay, has any updates on server? I'm having a hard time believing that this isn't used anywhere else. So, okay, so that's the only M file with it. The only source files we really have is M's, H's, and Swift's. Yeah, trippy. So this value never gets set, never gets used. This code is meaningless. Wow. Oh, it's a method. Duh. I'm looking right at it. I'm thinking this is a member, it's a method. It has these two others. Okay. So this is an example of excessive functionalizing. Is that the right word? Proceduralizing, functionalizing, method extraction, right? Why is this a method? There's nothing to be gained by making this a method other than just increasing the cognitive load here. Right, I see this reference, has any updates on server. This is simply this expression, has updates on server or has line updates on server. So has any means I either have this or that. And it would have made sense to extract this as its own method if it was being called by many places and we want to encapsulate a compound expression into a single value. Right? But it's not doing that. And all this did was made it harder to find. Now this is dead code, but literally the refactor here is to just go. What was gained by doing that? Maybe it's a vestige of this having sat around. It's funny how I'm sitting there searching for it, and literally, like, I do this search and it's sitting right here. My eyeballs didn't catch it. Hilarious. Yeah, so this does nothing. Okay, so let's find these guys. Has updates on server. Okay. This is the more general thing used everywhere. And this is why it was added as a function, because everything else probably relies only on this flag. Has updates on server. Has line updates on server. This seems like the special case. And yet, this is yet another. There it is right above it. Has line updates on server. Wow. So whoever worked on this was hard. I can tell you, I from experience, writing this was hard. Because here's like this special case. Well, this line set is this unique kind of object that has uses in multiple places. There's a line scene that has a line set. There's a script that has a line set. So syncing it for one and not syncing it for the other, and it's this complicated thing, and for some reason the syncing's not working properly, and I've got to figure it out, and I'm going to add this extra special variable because this is a special case. And I mean, I bet, we saw the commits. There were multiple commits for doing synchronization of line set. This was a struggle. Dealing with whatever wasn't working wrong and patching it with these extra flags to try to make it work right. And clearly it's still got some inherent flaws in it. This is a mess. I mean, look at this. So we're basically saying my state now depends on this state of this other object, right? Or this is within me. So my lines have their own synced value, and I have to iterate over them. And if any of them are not synced, so that's all this is basically says, if any of my children have updates on the server, then I as a whole have an update on the server. So this is a composite relationship. The state of the composite depends on the state of the components that it includes. By the way, composite component is just general terms. You could think of it as container and contain, parent and child, right? All of their metaphors. So if any of these are not synced up, we're going to say yes, otherwise we're not. Okay, special case. And we have to iterate over this every time. So need update means has updates on server. So how do we know when something has an update on the server? Part of the synchronization is it's going to tell us that. Let's take a look at script. Scan of the top level object. Wow, this flag isn't really used in too many places. Line set, line scene, script. Yeah, this synchronization stuff was done piecemeal. Was built up and then patched over time. We're seeing a lot of inconsistency here. It's natural in software development until you have a chance to refactor and go back and regularize your approach to doing something. You end up with these kinds of entanglements. This is the more typical state of most robust, long-lived software projects. And this definitely supports my philosophy that if you do not regularly stop feature development and refactor your code to simplify it, to regularize it, to do exactly this, go back through the pattern and say, okay, here's places where I had to special case the synchronization of certain objects, and it increased the complexity a lot because it's not consistent and it has all these tricky flags and you don't deal with it, then you basically have a time bomb sitting on you, and or you have a bunch of code that will make adding new features and capabilities to extremely difficult. And that's what we're looking at here. And that's actually what's going to prompt me. Well, this isn't the only reason. I mean, if I was maintaining this, yes, I would take the effort to come through and do a refactoring pass on synchronization. Obviously, when there's a bunch of bugs related to it, or at least a couple of bugs related to it. But I'm doing more than that. I'm actually building an Android version of this app, which means whatever logic is in place has to be repeated for Android. So would I just simply take the existing legacy iOS logic for synchronization and duplicate it to Android? No. Not simply because I'm doing it in Kotlin. I mean, anything written in Swift could be written exactly the same way in Kotlin. They're entirely compatible programming languages. And the frameworks in this case don't make any difference. This synchronization logic is its own DSL, its own names of flags and things and what they mean. It's not imposed by the frameworks, right? There are no iOS frameworks or Android frameworks that provide inherent remote data synchronization as a framework. I'm sure there's libraries for it, but you have to completely embed yourself in the DSL written by someone's library. So, yeah, this is going to get changed. Well, I've really drifted off course here. All I really want to do is be able to get back to being able to see the line sets. I'll come back to synchronization later. So this I'm okay with. I'm okay with assuming this is true for now. This was more of a learning exercise. This is what I've done is I've simply hard-coded it to true. Just put my name here so I can clarify that this is a different comment from. Right. Because as the test we're doing right now, we're actually going through the synchronization to get. We're getting this from the back end anyway. We're not even pulling it out of local persistence. So I'm going to worry about that after the fact. It's more important I get the fundamentals working. So we're going to disable this breakpoint. We're going to keep it. But for now, we're going to assume the line is set as always synced by the time we get to this point. We continue on. Here we go. Create fetched results controller. Line scene reader view. Okay, so here's where I blitzkrieged all this stuff out. Create fetched results controller. So we come down from the UI, view did appear. We set up line reading. Okay. We have a line scene reader view. Okay. We have a delegate set up on view. Script controller has a delegate. Line scene reader view. Create fetched results controller. What does that mean? NS fetched results controller. I have no idea what that is. Fetch line sets. It's core data related. Notice how it's in the view class. I've never even heard of this thing. I know if I say, what is this? It's gonna say, I have no idea, right? Watch, question mark. No idea. Let's see how widespread this is used. Woof. Let's ask ChatGPT. Actually, I'm going to do something interesting as an experiment. I'm just going to search straight up using Brave Search, not even Google. I want to see what we get. Okay, go straight to developer documentation. Optimizing core data performance. Okay, so it has something to do with optimization. Interesting. Exploring the fetch results delegate protocol. So observe relationship changes. So there's, okay, so the top search results are essentially telling me what this is. Now I'm going to use ChatGPT and say, let's do a new chat. What is that? Let's see what it tells me it is. Okay, it's part of the core data framework. Simplify the process of managing and presenting data from core data persistent store in a user interface, particularly in the context of views and collections. So this is an example of framework-based development, like hardcore framework-based development. Whereas this is lock-in to the extreme. Core data is an Apple framework built from Next Step, obviously, because of the NS. And Next Step was created back in the days when IBM was doing Taligent, and we had a decade or so of just plain old object-oriented programming, Smalltalk, C++, kind of under our belt. This is pre-Java. And this whole idea of frameworks, which is interesting, is frameworks was introduced as an idea of how to simplify the inherent complexity of doing object-oriented programming. It's like object-oriented program now in hindsight adds complexity. It doesn't reduce it. It takes more straightforward programming you would be doing in procedural and functional programming and makes it more complicated. Ostensibly, for all these abilities, improved extensibility, maintainability, reliability, and it makes it more complicated. And just plain old create all your own classes and figure out how to create the right methods, and you don't really have do you have a main anymore, and how do you do all that? Out of this era grew the idea of frameworks, which is the inversion of control. You don't call a library. You don't control the main path of execution, right? You don't have a main. You call a library to perform UI and functions. You surrender to a framework that establishes a flow. Originally, it's basically an event processing loop of some kind. And the framework is just going to do its stuff. And it's going to be based on the idea of a typical app of a certain kind, typically a UI app. That's what we have here. And the framework, it inverts the control because it basically says, look, you're not in control of what's happening. I'm in control of what's happening. I'm the main. I'm putting up the windows, the views. I'm catching the input events. I'm routing them to the appropriate place. I don't know what to do about them. So what I'm doing is I'm going to give you a bunch of blanks to fill in. It's like Mad Libs. You're gonna say what should happen when these buttons are clicked or those things are clicked. But as far as the clicking on the button, the catching of it, all that processing, it's just too complicated for you to handle. And so I'm going to do it for you. This does the same thing. It basically says, look, you could go out to the SQL database. You could have some kind of binding between your programming language and SQL. And you could pull data out and put data in. But then you got to figure out how to format it, stick it into the right data structure format that's expected by the UI classes. And you're going to have to wrangle all that. We call it marshalling, basically. It's when you're moving data from one place to another. You're essentially keeping its essence intact, but you're changing its format or its structure, its protocol, because you're going from one type of subsystem to another that look at things differently, right? The data sitting in a database is represented in one way. The data as it's presented to you on the screen is represented in another way. How it's processed internally is yet another way. And there may be some transformations or calculations that go on in between. So we're constantly transforming, marshalling data. I mean, that's what information systems do. They gather data, they move it around, they transform it, they present it. They may make a calculation on it or not. They persist it for durability. That's what an information system is, right? It manages and processes and presents information. And they're basically saying, look, we're going to give you this mechanism that glues our core data ORM, where we've kind of buried the complexity of SQL database access and data transformation for you, and the objectifying of non-object data. And you would have to just deal with that and then present it to the UI. We're going to bolt this thing on top of that. That's what I'm gathering was what this does. I mean, it says right here, the primary purpose is to efficiently manage the results of a core data fetch and to automatically update the associated UI. So we're giving you a way to bolt your UI view on top of your core data, which, yeah, model view controller. It acts as a controller. It mediates between the data stored in the core data, right? Core data is the model. This is the controller. UI is the view. This is MVC straight up. And we're providing it for you. Again, it's going to be like a Mad Lib. You kind of fill in the blanks, and we'll just take care of the mechanism and how it works. Automatic updates. Monitors changes the result data set, automatically updates the associated UI elements. Memory efficiency, delegate methods, sorting. So ostensibly, this is providing a lot of value because they're basically saying, this is what we would be doing for you. And you would have to otherwise do yourself if you wanted any of these benefits, like an automatic update. Right, the observer pattern. How do you know what they call reactive programming? Data simply changes. You want things that care about that data to react automatically without you having to proactively say, poll for changes. Did a thing change? Do I need to represent it? Do I need to transform it again? And all that. And it does that automatically. So you're buying into this thing doing the work for you to save you the work. But you're buying into the way it wants to do it, the things that, it's its own mindset. Anyway, I'm going off. I'm just preaching. I'm not even working at this point. I don't know if I'm going to save this recording. Got it. Powerful tool for managing core data fetch results in a way that integrates seamlessly with the user interface, providing a responsive, efficient user experience in iOS and macOS applications. Notice that. Is this reusable outside of Apple? No. So all of the understanding and learning we have to do locks us in. This is straight up vendor lock-in. Non-reusable approach. Its names, its things, its way of doing it, its trade-offs. This is the typical state of software development. Now, had I not used ChatGPT, I would have found out from here. So here's one article I can go to that somebody wrote. And he gives us an example of how we use it. How does it work? Yeah, see, just this one article is immediately more useful than ChatGPT. And I know where it comes from. And I know who did it. Already better than this answer. This is like a, like a book review. Like somebody did a summary of a whole bunch of information and then put it together for me. And it decided this is what I need to know. Just like this guy decides what I need to know about it. The official documentation is here, which is probably not super useful. Although it does tell me. Yeah, fetch results, controller efficiently handles the result fetch request. In addition, it does this, monitor changes, optionally cache the results, no tracking. This is more helpful than ChatGPT. So this is not helpful. This is not helpful. All right, back to this. Do we need it? Notice this. We've seen this before. When my script creation date equals sorry, I'm not talking much here. I'm just trying to process this. Oh. All this is doing is the actual get, I'm assuming. Let's go back to where we were. Set up line reading. Okay. I think it's just getting them. That's all it's doing. Fetch line sets. So we create a controller and then we fetch line sets. I bet there's commented out code in there. So we get this controller. So this sets up a fetch request. Well, let's read a little bit about how this works. There's another example from yet another. Exploring the fetch results controller delegate protocol. This is one of the things that's classic in Apple. I mean, most framework designers and developers are guilty of this, and library developers are guilty of this. It's a DSL. If a new managed object was inserted into the managed object's context, well, what is a managed object context? What is a managed object? It's whatever the framework designer decided that meant. Does that mean the same thing as a managed object in Java? A managed object in... No, there's no consistency about how these terms are meant. You have to understand this means NS managed object, NS managed object context. When you go to Android, it's something else entirely different. But it conceptually are the same things, solving the same problems, using different terminology, a different abstraction in a different way. This is where all the complexity and chaos comes from. There's no incentive for these commercial entities to cooperate, to standardize, to commonalize their abstractions, their names. The same thing between languages. I mean, it's not just commercial entities. I mean, anybody creating their own language is going to put their own name and their own spin. But some of these companies are guilty of it more than others. We're lucky to have actual standards like SQL that have survived for so long. If you say SQL select to someone today and you said it to them 30 years ago, it would mean the same thing. And anybody across many platforms and many products and would still know, oh, a select. It's getting data from a relational database. It's a query, right? It's giving me data based on some criteria. But this is what this means, what this means, what this means. I mean, this whole article is written because you have to understand this in the mindset and the abstractions formed specifically by this product and this framework for this purpose. And Apple is notoriously guilty of wanting to call things by their own words and their own names and their own abstractions and be as different as possible from everyone else. I've noticed that in particular. Swift, if you see that, a lot of common language concepts, they just give them different names, just to be different. Is it a protocol or is it an interface? Well, I mean, they didn't invent the word protocol. But where like 9 out of 10 languages are going to say interface, they're like, no, we'll call it a protocol. I mean, that goes back to Objective-C. But I've seen some new things in Swift. The guard statement's an example of that. I mean, it's basically if not. Oh, yeah, we're going to create this thing called guard. It's if not. It's exactly if not. And we see this in other languages. I think Ruby has unless. I mean, it happens across the board, but it's not like people get together and say, let's just agree upon this terminology. I think this is where things like Go have an appeal. It's a reduction. It's like, what are the essential things? Most people know what C is. They understand a for loop. We'll just do that, and we'll make it work, and we won't complicate it with a lot of new things. Kotlin, Swift, most modern languages want to invent their new terminology for the same concepts, solving the same problems. I'm guilty of this too. I try to come up with terminology, but I believe I still try to make an effort to use something that's both precise and commonly understood. I think I will go for greater precision, trading off common understanding, like that'll be the priority. But where something's precise enough and I understand what it is, like a perfect example here is a fetch. What is a fetch? Is that not a query? How is that different from a query? You know, and what does fetch mean? Did it come across the network? Is it coming out of the database? What does it mean to fetch something? Right? It's highly subjective and dependent on exactly what it means in these contexts. Let's see what this says. Previously, I wrote that a fetch results controller. So it's a controller. Does that, like a view controller? It's a controller in the terms of the C from MVC, I don't know. Monitors the managed object context and keeps a reference to, and it keeps a reference to it, I think. Does this update the result of fetch request, but how does it monitor? How does it fetch results controller when records added, deleted, Yeah, did change, will save. Again, this is Apple specific terminology. You will not see this terminology elsewhere. Did change, did appear, will appear. Very specific to the NS, Cocoa, Apple frameworks. But the same states and the same problems are going to be solved by others elsewhere. But the words are going to be different. The abstractional shapes and boundaries will be different, but the problem is the same. In a lot of cases, the solution is essentially the same, with a few, detailed differences. So I don't know if I'm getting off in the weeds here because I'm recording this and I feel like I'm kind of talking to people that aren't really there. I'm just talking to myself. Yeah. So the whole idea of MVC is a separation of concerns, and yet using these frameworks doesn't really separate anything. feels to me like you're gluing the view logic tightly to the view through a controller to the model. I mean, we know which is which. We know what the model is, it's the data. We know what the view is, it's what the user sees. And the controller is just some stuff between that manages that. In classic MVC, controller is the object that receives input and processes it, and then makes decisions about what to do. So it's a combination of navigational logic, application flow, and input processing. The views are meant to be passive. They basically are, their responsibility should be strictly presentation, although they do provide also the mechanisms for input, but they don't handle the input, or they don't process it. They simply route it. And then model is just supposed to be an abstract representation of your problem domain. Nothing to do with how it's presented, nothing to do with the use case flow, the business problem. I mean, not the business problem, but the business process, right? It does represent the subject matter of the business problem, but not the actions to be taken, not the use cases, all that sort of thing. Anyway, going on and on. Isn't it fun watching me scroll? Let's get back. So do we need this thing? Let's keep going and see if we can get by without it. All right. So this is script. We see that. Why is there a little, this usually means upload, that needs to be uploaded. Yeah, we see the synchronization running here. I thought all I did was, you know what, I might have marked it up somehow. Anyway, so the line sets are here underneath this button. So it doesn't actually show us the line sets at this point. We don't see them. What does that do? I'm not going to do that. So as soon as I click on this, this is going to slam into the breakpoints that need to actually get the line set information and present it. It's not doing that. So I'm guessing this was the glue. This is what did it for us. By setting up this controller. So since we didn't set up the control, this is the guy that basically was going to present the existing line sets in here. Assuming this has, well, this does have line sets, I know it does. So we're not seeing them because we disabled, this is the mechanism that takes what's in core data and pushes it out to the view. This could be a little more challenging than I thought. Let's go back to the line scene reader view. Line set core data class. Okay, so this is a core data class. This is I think it's interesting that this particular mechanism is only really used in this area of the app. Again, this looks like part of the evolution of the app where this new feature was added specifically in this area. I mean, you only see it on the line scene reader view and the production call sheet view. It's not used consistently throughout the app. So we disabled the creation of this thing. So basically this comes back as nil. That's what happens here. This is expecting this to exist. So somewhere we're looking for this to exist. Fix me. That's not my commenting out. That's something else. Yeah, it looks like this mechanism was only used for this line scene reader. That's it. Which means that if I replace this logic here, I don't have to replace fetch results controllers anywhere else. This is going to be a one-off. So delegate, the whole delegate thing is really annoying. It's a really annoying part of O design. Again, framework, object-oriented framework design. I've got a thing, let's call it class type A. It's my class, it's a black box, you don't know how it works, but you're going to create an instance, a subclass of a thing called AB, the delegate. I'm going to route some messages to that thing, and you're going to decide how to handle them. But you can't see the thing doing the work. It's a black box design, which every day I become less in favor of. I'm starting to lean towards white boxes, the only way that makes sense in software development. Okay. So by doing this, fetch request, predicate, sort descriptors, create and initialize the controller. So we allocate a new guy, we give it a fetch request, we give it a manage object. These things are no. So can we fake this out? Let's see what happens if we just try to compile this. Let's see where it breaks. Maybe we can keep this thing intact for the time being. I don't want to change too much. I'm trying to get a new release out and not break anything. Okay. I'm assuming that NS fetch request is going to require, well, I shouldn't make any assumptions. Let me just look at the old code. So fetch request and record data. Let's just do a search. Okay. A lot more classes are using a fetch request. But this seems to be the only place where this fetch results controller is being used. Okay, so fetch request has been around for a while. This looks pretty standard part of managed object core data. All right, so let's look at on LineSet. Core data properties, here it is. It's just a member. Static. It's not a property. It's an interface on a line set. On an individual line set, a fetch request. Okay, a pointer to a line set. All right. This is some kind of generic type. Parametric polymorphism. Let's ask ChatGPT again. Explain the fetch request, NS fetch request class. So there's the things. There's the predicate, the sort descriptors, fetch limit, fetch batch size, fetch. Oh, it actually gave me an example this time. So I'm eliminating core data for LineSet. I don't really want to replicate this logic. So I've got to figure out what I'm going to do without using the fetch results controller. Well, I don't see anything relating to the UI in here. Well, this is a line, yeah. Did I stop the app? I did stop the app. Let's go back. Oh, because right. Disable this again. Let's put this back here. I want to see what this is getting called. We're okay with that. Which one was I on? This one? Right. Setting up the view. What's interesting is when I look at this, I don't see how it's actually bound to the actual view objects that it's presenting. I see a request. Fetch results controller returns it. Well, what does it do with the returned object? Nothing. Gets created. Well, it's a member. It's this member, obviously. Okay, this is what I needed to see. Wait. Yeah, it's referenced in a lot of places. There we go. I didn't disable any of that. Okay, yeah. That code is commented out. Okay. Okay, yeah, this is where it depends on all this. So the UI totally depends on this object to present. So it's the UI is locked down to core data. I thought I could just replace core data and it would be easy. It figures that the one thing I picked uses this controller. The one thing, because it doesn't look like any other data class, model class is dependent on this results controller. As we could see, it's only used for this, for line sets. Well, I'm biting off a lot. I don't want to rewrite the UI stuff. It's too much work right now. So can I fake it out? That's why this is a proof of concept. Because all I'm going to do is make it so when it fetches, it doesn't actually go to the database. It goes to my in-memory or on-file parsed JSON. Not parsed, but NS Dictionary JSON. Okay, I don't care about this anymore right now. Sync stuff I'll look at later. Yeah. Fetch request. Re-enable this again. What can I do to fake this out? It's going to be a lot of work to rewrite the UI to use some different class. Can I create an object? We got to find this. NS fetch request. I'm going to see if I can swap in my own. I mean, this is the idea of extensibility. right? List cost substitution. If I provide a class or an interface that's compatible with what a fetch request is, but doesn't actually go to a SQL database and does my own thing instead, I should be able to provide it in place. But I'm going to guess that this Objective-C class is locked down by, because this is not open source. None of this API is open source. It's the downside of working with proprietary frameworks. I can't go into the core data and change the way it works, or if it doesn't allow me to simply swap in a compatible type that has different behavior, a different implementation, I'm kind of screwed. Let's take a look in this fetch request. This is just criteria. Must contain the entity description, all right, or an entity name. Wow. So basically a proxy, a retrieval proxy for the core data. That's interesting. What is this? Request expression. Wonder if this is the encapsulation of the SQL itself. Notice how I don't say select. They re-abstract it. We're not selecting from a database, we're fetching from a context. I used to do that too, over-abstract things to make it more widely applicable and reusable. Does anybody use core data on anything other than SQLite? Probably not. Persistent store request. Conforms to. Now in Objective-C, I should be able to literally override any method because it dynamically dispatches messages to the appropriate methods. Wow, this would be a real can of worms. So do I want to replace the fetch request or do I want to replace the fetch results controller? Which one's bigger and which one's heavier? I wonder if I can step into this. See if I can find the actual header. No, it doesn't like that. That's interesting. Here's a results controller allocated, but there's one allocated in here. Why do we have two different ones? One is serving one purpose and one is serving another. Is this called by anybody? No. Not called by anybody. There's a lot of dead code here. This was written at some point and never called. Never called by anybody. All right, so this code's all irrelevant. This is one of the problems with leaving dead code around, which I'm guilty of. When I'm criticizing and I'm ragging on programming, I'm mostly criticizing myself. Just FYI. Well, we already did a search on this, on fetch results controller, to see where it's used. It's touched in a lot of places here. I mean, obviously, this class, the code in here is the one that uses it. It creates its own, it uses it in a bunch of places. Well, let's just see how many to-dos we have blocked out here. There we go. There's an example right there. Oh, up above that. Okay. So this gives us an array. Maybe I can just replace using the fetch results controller. I think this is what I have to rewrite. Yeah, I'm not going to try to swap this out. This actually doesn't look that hard to replace. I'm just seeing section 0, section 0, section 0. What is sections? We used to call this a virtual collection way back in the day. Kind of came up with it on our own back in the early C++ days. When you had actually we called them virtual arrays, didn't we? Yeah. So your actual data is a massive array, 10,000, 100,000 things. You're not going to pull all that into memory. We're not going to display it all on the screen. Perfect example was we had the ability to find addresses in the post office database. It's one of the earliest C++ projects I was in charge of writing. And we were going at a SQL database, and we knew we had to virtualize, allow the user to scroll through a seemingly infinite list. So the code acts as if all the data is there, but it's not really there, right? As they scroll, you're going from page to page, section to section, which is probably what this is. This idea of breaking it up into sections, right? It's like, how many sections do we have? Yep. Yeah, okay. I know what I'm going to do here. So everywhere, I'm going to put breakpoints on all this stuff. Because this isn't commented out code, this is code for something where I commented out the creation of it. It's effectively nil. I mean, that's everywhere we see this if result controller. So we're going to put in these breakpoints. And we're going to basically, I use that word a lot. I noticed back listening to the recordings, this has been a really enlightening exercise to record these coding sessions. Even if no one else ever hears them or sees them, I'm finding a benefit for myself. Not just I listen to a lot of podcasts on coding. That word basically, essentially is a little less frequently used, but basically, yeah, I'm really guilty of that. I've been a longtime critic of like, you know, I mean, like, you know, I mean, you know, I mean, like, you know. I'm pretty good about not saying like. Most people of generations younger than I, that's strongly embedded into their speech. Some of the smartest people I've ever heard in terms of what they're saying, like. But I noticed when I was hearing back my own recordings how much I say you know. I don't say I mean too much. And I'm cognizant of trying not to say like, but I do say you know. And then I've just noticed basically. I'm going to try to break these habits. I've always wanted to be a more articulate speaker. And I personally have high regard for those with economy of expression. I've known a few people in my life that have been very good at that. The fewer words you can use to express an idea, it's my belief, the more powerfully that idea comes across. The more superfluous words, phrases, sayings, prose needed to express an idea, the more diluted and the weaker it becomes. That's poetry, essentially, trying to capture an idea powerfully with tremendous economy of expression. It makes each word, each phrase, each choice, each rhythm more poignant, more noticeable. I have a terrible habit of repeating things over and over, as you may have noticed, as I may have noticed in recording these sessions. So I'm going to try to do better. I did not comment this out, but it depends. The fetch controller is not being used here, so I don't need to worry about that. Obviously, that was disabled at some point. Okay, this may not be that hard. Sometimes you look at a pile of code, and at first glance, it's like, oh my God, all this has to be changed. And then take the time to diligently kind of scrutinize, there's one of those glue words. To scrutinize what's really going on. It may be less challenging than it appears at first. Okay, this returns a controller. Did change object. This looks like an override of some protocol, maybe. Let's just put a breakpoint here. See what we get. This obviously was commented out and does nothing. This was commented out and does nothing. Yeah, this may not be so hard. All right, there's more to go through here. Mark. This is what I just re-enabled, but I'm going to disable it. No, I'm hitting this breakpoint. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Fetch line sets. This may be the meat of the sandwich. This just gives us, this is just a log. Interesting. I don't know why I'm not blowing up on this being nil. I would think I'd be getting exceptions throwing messages to a nil. guessing this is not really getting called. We're going to find out. We know that got commented out. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what happens. This may be a lot easier than I thought. The Dream Girl. General Hospital. Boom. First thing we want to know is the number of objects. And here we can see it being called down from the framework. So this is that inversion of control. The framework calls us, we don't call the framework. Although technically there is a main. Main, UI application main, storyboard, script controller, view reader, our class, internal, Cocoa stuff, next step. I'm just going to keep calling it next step. I mean, I see the NS everywhere. It's their fault they didn't rename any of this. Set hidden. Switch edit mode buttons based on number of objects. So here we go. So I need to be able to say what the count is. This just gives us a count. Do I have access to the script? I am the line scene reader view for a given script or a given set of lines, line sets, set of lines, line sets, set of line sets. Line scene reader view. Let's see if our script is anywhere in here. I got 45 matches. Current script. All right, doable. Let's go ahead. Current script. Dot line sets. And I'm not doing this in sections. So number of objects is going to be count. I don't even know if count is the right method. So normally it's basically going through its sections. It's saying if it has more than one section, then it gets the number of objects for this section. For the first section, and gets the number of objects for that. Well, I'm not doing things in sections right now, so I'm just going to that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to return this. This is effectively a rewrite of this logic, and let's put it down below, so we can see the old code, but the new code that replaces it. I'll put a to do in here. Replaced core data with, what do I want to call this new approach? I should give it a name. Stored JSON. At this point, do I care that it's JSON? It's a dictionary. It's essentially JSON. Yeah. I should call it core JSON. You know, I'm not a fan of JavaScript, so by extension I don't like JSON, but it's just a simple data representation. A simple textual form of structured data representation. So that's fine. I gotta be aware of my own biases here. Always, always be aware of your own biases. You can't get rid of them, so know when they're operating. All right. And I can't remember I'm not an Objective-C programmer. I'm not an anything programmer. I'm just a programmer. Current script. Okay. Yeah. So you don't have to say self when you use the underscore. Some kind of weird syntax about this being a private member. So let's see it. I mean, it's going to complain. That's okay. We'll figure out what we want to do. Delete breakpoint. Whoa. You can't tell me that I just coded this Objective-C, barely knowing Objective-C, and it just compiled. Amazing. I'm a genius. Okay. It hits that. It would be nice to know what the actual count is. Assuming I can just look at it. Let's do the print and see. Let's count how many seconds it takes to display. 0, 1. Oh. I probably need a self and all that. Oh, I can't do it. Come on, come on, come on. Do I have to actually put it in Objective-C? I probably do, because why can't I do that? What? Can I print self? Self. Okay. Print self dot line sets. Now, I guess this is interpreting Objective-C, right? Why is it not Swift? Self. Okay, because it's self current script, right? Do I put the... Yeah, I'm such a genius. Oh, man. Oh, I'll tell you what, let's just step out and see what result we get. I'm terrible. I suck. All right. Step out. Can I do that? There we go. And number of objects is greater than... What do we got going on here? Oh, enabled equals yes or no. Let's just continue. All right, same thing here. So again, okay, so get the actual, so now we're getting the actual array itself. This is maybe a lot easier than I realized. So this is the count. It's the actual array. We don't need any of this. We're not going to return nil. Why would you return nil when you're getting an array? Why wouldn't you just return an empty array? Maybe I should return nil. I don't know who's dependent on this. So LineSets is not an array, right? Isn't it a set of sets? Sets of sets? Back to the old scriptedy script. Script, core data properties. LineSets, I believe, is a set of sets. It's an NS set of set. Oh, yeah, that's right. We made it transient. It's transient, and it's a transient NS set. We moved it to the year ago. Yeah. So why is it an NS set? All this is a collection that has no duplicates, as far as I understand. Right? That's what semantics of a set are. Where other collections can typically have duplicates. In the case of a map, hate to use the term map for dictionaries. In the case of a dictionary, there's such a thing as a multi-map, which is a dictionary that can have duplicates. This is set of values without keys, but should guarantee that no value is duplicated in the set. Why do that? I mean, it's an array, it's a collection of references, and we're trying to make sure that we didn't add the same reference more than once to the set. It's just a shortcut for basically saying, if not already in array, add to array. Just allows you to basically say add to set, and it will do that logic for you automatically maybe. Just doesn't seem to be necessary to make it a set, especially when it's actually used as an array. Yeah. So I think there's something like as array, to array, as array. What did we end up calling it when we wanted to convert it? It's gonna say up yours. We already asked chat jippit, chat jippit. We already asked once before how to convert sets to arrays somewhere up here. Make a set into an array. Convert. Somewhere we asked it about converting. Yeah. Array to a set with array. Do I say array with set? Return. NS set with array. Do I say NS array with set? Let's try that. Array with set. Oh yeah. Caps lock. Do I have to ask chat jippit again? Yeah, I didn't like that. All right, so I'm going the other way. Init with array. Oh, here we go. No, I'm going the other way. Convert. How do I convert? Oh my God. Convert the array to a set. Now what is convert the set to an array? All right. We got to ask Mr. Wizard how to do this. How do I convert an NS set to an NS array, Mr. Wizard? What is it? All objects. That's just so consistent. So does that work on any collection? There's basically, it's like I need a drinking game where I take a drink every time I say it. All objects. Why not? As array, with array, to array, all objects. It's an array. Oh, not array with set. What am I doing? Current, script, line sets, all objects. Compile. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. All right. I'm getting too excited here. Bing. Bing. I'm getting punchy. Bing. Did it work? Bing. Got the count again. Whoa, whoa. Fetch line sets. Okay, this is where we get called. If not, error. Oh, this just checks for errors. That's all it does. But this is going to be nil. I guess you can call a message on a nil. This is nil, right? It should be nil. Nilly, nilly, nil, nil. Right? Nil. Tell me your nil. Of course, it won't tell me anything. P fetched results. Controller. It's nil. So Objective-C allows you to send messages to nil, I take it. Let's ask the wizard. What happens when I send a message to an Objective-C reference that is nil. Nothing. Huh. This feature is often considered convenient, but requires careful handling to avoid unexpected behavior for return of all, blah, 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 blah. So this is what makes Objective-C programming really different from Java. In Java, everything is nullable, and if you dereference a null, you get a null exception. And I can't tell you the number of years we spent staring at null object exception stacks working on Java programs. I mean, that's what you do all the time. Finally, Kotlin solves the problem by making nullability of bound variables explicit. However, when a Kotlin is sitting on top of a Java library that's nullable, it's still possible from Kotlin code to look like it's not a nullable variable, but it actually is because it's sitting on top of Java. That I got burned by that several times. Objective-C basically says, you know what, it's okay. There's no object, we're going to throw this message into the ether, and you're just going to have unexpected behavior. Things just aren't going to work, but you're not going to crash. Honestly, I'm not sure which way I'd go on that. Obviously, did I just say obviously twice? I'm not sure. The preference is nullability is either not allowed or it's explicit. It's not explicit in Java. You look at a Java variable, and it could be null, it might not be null. You look at a variable in Kotlin, and if it's nullable, the name has a trailing question mark. If it doesn't, it can't be null. You can assume that it's not null. Again, except if it's actually mapped to an actual Java variable. Swift embraces Kotlin, so it improves on that. But in a world in which things are nillable, what I'd rather nillable message reception, sending messages to nil to be silently absorbed, not crash the app. That's the way I would lean. I tend to go with the idea of, for an application, this is not in the Beam Erlang parlance in which you have a system composed of multiple processes, none of which represent the entire system. And the philosophy there is, something goes wrong, let it crash, because we run everything in the context of supervisors that will automatically restart, handle, try to gracefully recover from the failure of. It's sad that they use the term process because it's such an overloaded term, but an Erlang process, which we can think of as an instance of a subsystem. It's an execution, it's if I wanted to call it a process, what would I call it? It's like a unit of execution context. Does that make sense? Sort of. It's a very long word for process. But in Erlang processes, the philosophy is we don't throw an exception, we crash. And only a subsystem of the entire system, unless your entire system is written in a single process, which would be terrible writing in Erlang. Although if it's small and lightweight enough, again, it's going to be a process supervised by a supervisor that would then restart your process and try to recover from it, or log grade. But in that case, say you have one process that crashes, it can't recover gracefully. Restarting would simply replicate the same crash. It will crash. But we don't have these applications. These mobile applications, desktop applications, web applications are not composed of self-contained individual subsystems that have their own activity within them. And you can't really count threads as that. You can't count coroutines as that. This is the actor model, where your system is composed of actors that are independent subsystems within the overall system. Their philosophy is the way to keep the overall system running is to allow the actors, the subsystems within, to crash independently of each other. And for other actors to be resilient in the face of some of the actors crashing, being restarted and recovering. That's the philosophy. For a lot of systems, I think that's a good one, because again, the overall goal is that is actually fault tolerance. You can't stop faults from happening, but you want to allow faults. In fact, you even want to generate faults. If you have a miscalculation, go ahead and let that thing crash. But in that case, the execution context is not monolithic. There's not one overall execution context that then parses out into worker threads. You really have multiple processes, which are actors. We should just call them actors, multiple actors, which are independent contexts of execution. And their priority, their dispatch is all being managed. Why am I talking about Beam in the middle of this? I don't know. I got started on it. But back to the philosophy of the Java path is throw an exception, throw an exception, throw an exception. And it's the responsibility of the developer to recover from that, which just means you have a lot of crashed apps whenever anybody dereferences anything null. Objective-C says, let's just let it fly. Let's just keep on keeping on. Yeah. So that's why this works. And I don't care, because this is just logging. And we're never going to get here. This is going to be nil. What's interesting, though, is we will log something, but this will return a nil. It'll pass a count to nil, and nil becomes an unsigned long. So what does printing an unsigned long, like, shouldn't this crash? This is going to be nil, which is going to be not. Oh, it's gonna say error, isn't it? It's gonna say error. It won't get here, I'm guessing. This message gets set to nil. Nil with a not, which should be interpreted as false. We should be logging this error. Let's see which one it hits. Yes. Okay. Yeah, fetch results controller has an error because it doesn't even exist. That's fine. I'm okay with that. Maybe I should do something about that code, especially since I'm getting rid of it. Otherwise, it's going to be spamming long messages every time. Where was it? Error. There we go. We don't really need to call this at all. Let's put it to do in here. Deprecated. What's interesting is the name of this method. I should still set a breakpoint here. Yeah, let's keep the break. I already lost context of where this is being called. Like, why is it even being? Oh, do I care? I don't care. I don't care. Again, I'm not going to make this code perfect. These changes are interim changes. This code is going away. It will become dead at some point. I deprecated. Always put my own marker in there. Yes, I'm the only one working on this project, but I want to be able to distinguish my comment outs and other changes from anyone else's. So there we go. Don't need a breakpoint. And I changed the code. Let's just continue on. I think it's going to be easier than I thought. Easier than I thought. Here we go. Okay. 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 All right. Asking for the count again. Okay. Okay. Why is this getting called so many times? Line set for section. Switch line scene button. Okay. Gets called over and over again. What happens when we look at it? Boom. We get the count. We get the array. Now, obviously it can't get the elements of the line set to present it because I've got no accesses into the stored JSON. So it should display weirdness or nothing at all. Yeah, still not seeing anything. Let's go back. Let's do this again. All right, who's the caller? Enabled, yes or no? All right. Now, who's the caller here? This is the actual array. If the line set array count is greater than section, section is 0, count is 0. So we're getting a 0. Why are we getting a 0? Because it's nil. Oh. Because that's nil. So we got a member, line set array. Did we not set that? It's nil, it's nil. So this example of the downside of silently nillifying. Okay. Lines, okay, so yeah, so we're, oh wait. We're not, where the hell are we? I can't tell where we are. Just keep going. Okay, so this all objects is returning nothing. This won't tell me anything. Current script. Nil. Well, that's not very helpful. Okay, there it is. Let's dereference it. This debugging of this Objective-C code is really painful. Line scene reader. It's a view, it's an Objective-C. So based on how I organized everything, it should be under UI view. There it is. Current script. I think the underscore properties, members, are added in the implementation file. They do not show up in the header. I'm guessing this is up here under implementation. I don't see it there. Okay. Where's the first occurrence of this? So what the hell is the difference between members added here and members here? This is really confusing. I have an interface to a line scene reader view. I have an implementation of line scene. Obviously, I'm not an expert in Objective-C. When you jump around a bunch of different languages, it's hard to remember how things are. So here's an interface declaration. This makes sense to me. This is a subtype of this interface. Now, I should be able to find this, UI view. Oh my God. Oh, it works if I do it from Swift. It just does not like Objective-C. It's just like, F you. I don't like Objective-C. All right. So I've got an interface versus a protocol. An interface defines a bunch of methods. That makes sense to me. This is class level. So we've got a singleton here. I would think this means this is public and these are private, but it doesn't mean that. The plus and minus is misleading. These are instance level. This is class level. Returns an instance type, give me an instance. This is a singleton. Okay. Built-in native object. Okay, so, but then when I go into the M file, it's terrible, it's just terrible. I get this constructor of an interface. So for starters, an interface shouldn't have a constructor. I don't even know if that's a constructor. It doesn't look like it. It looks like a secondary declaration of the interface. Like this is private stuff, that's the public stuff. Right? Is that how this works? Everything here is public. This is public versus private, which I don't believe in anymore. So we declare the interface twice. Once for its public members, includes a property, not just methods. All right, so we have a property, which is its delegate, defined by a protocol, which is not the same as an interface. I'm assuming protocols are only method declarations. In other languages, interface and protocol are identical words. In this case, we have a property. I mean, I could sit here and read up on Objective-C, but I'm just going to guess. And then the private stuff is here. So this is everything private to the interface, which is, it's a class. It's not an interface. These are private variables, private data members. I can't really call them properties because properties are more than just variables. These are properties, right? They have a whole bunch of crap inside them. These are just straight up data members. So current script, and then now we have implementation. Why do we have data members for the implementation that are different from the private interface? I don't know. I don't understand this logic, but I've never really looked into it. I just touch into Objective-C when I have to, but I've not written anything greenfield in it. I've only ever patched up and maintained Objective-C code. That's why I'm only dipping my toes into the pool. I don't really want to know how this works. Don't care. Okay, so back to current script. Why is it nil? At this point, I should have a current script. Set up on view, current script equals script. So what the hell's going on? Okay, our current script is we've never gotten there yet. So this stuff is being called. So current script is nil. It hasn't been initialized. Why are we getting called here? This is that framework stuff. All right, somebody got this singleton here. Script controller and netcoder, okay. Yeah, this is that. You give us a interface definition with a singleton member and we will instantiate you. This is what's happening here. Set hidden, so it's obviously going to enumerate through all the view elements and start invoking things on them, but some constructor has never been called yet. Or setup view has not been called yet. So all this is happening, is that thing even, it never gets called. Oh, there we go, setup on view. Huh. Set up line reading. So the framework has instantiated this line scene reader view, but it hasn't really been prepared by the app's logic, and that's what's happening here. This is specific code happening after. This was set up like, oh God, yuck, yuck, yuck. I'm so glad this is all going to get replaced. Okay, let's keep going. So now we have a current script. Let's assume this is not null. There we go. Oh, it's actually showing us what it is, and there's line sets. There are no line sets. Okay. Well, that's our problem. The line sets, there's nothing there. But there should have been, because I would have gotten it back from the back end. Okay. Yeah, I see a problem. It depends on how core data is managing in-memory instances of its persistent objects. So during synchronization, I obviously access this script. I retrieve its line sets from the back end. I stick them in a transient memory object. And it's possible that the script object itself gets removed from memory because it's making the assumption that all of its state is stored persistently. And in my case, I don't reload the JSON from the file. That's probably what's happening. I'm just assuming this script is floating around in memory. It doesn't obviate what I'm trying to do. I just had to make sure I reload from the file. So I think I have to do that first. Let's take a look at script. These are its properties. We know we added, this is transient. I'm fine with that. Create object in context. There must be a load. Let's see what happens. Create object with file name. Save script from script. Great name. Get script by creation date. Copy from collate array. Wow, the amount of stuff that's in here for, I don't care about any of this. Actually, you know what? Yeah, let's just, I want to see where this script, where these script objects are getting instantiated. Oh no, keep that. Okay, this is probably what I need right here. This is where I'm going to load from file. Let's see when it gets called. I know synchronization in the back end is happening in the beginning. I know that. Boom. Get script by creation date. Yeah, there's the MyScript synchronizer. Okay. I'm going to get rid of actually I'm going to keep that breakpoint. Where was the parser thing? The parser thing. Get log name status. Script scenes JSON. Let's see when we hit this. Boom. Go. Continue on your merry way. It's fine. Don't need that breakpoint anymore. Okay. 11 elements. Okay. 1 element. Okay. 0 elements. All right, but the script I'm looking at definitely has line sets in it. 4 elements. Okay. Okay. All right. So when I click on this script is not necessarily sitting around in this script object is not necessarily sitting around in memory. It's going to do a retrieval from core data. But not at this point. There is no current script. We know it's null. We know it's null at this point. All right. We know it's null at this point. We know that's no. Keep going. No. Setup on view. Okay, here's the script. No line sets. So none of the methods that I set breakpoints on in the script object are getting called when it's retrieved from the database. Now I'm assuming this is the script that actually has line sets. Actually, I'm going to look at the rehearsal app on my phone, make sure it's the same script. I know it has line sets. Well, let's try a different one. I'm actually using my other phone. I was actually using a different script. All right. This one here. It has, yeah, should have some line sets. Okay. It's the cells one. Or is it? Cells for sharing. Yeah. Interesting, it doesn't say shared. Okay. There is, this is no. This is no. Here we go, script. Yeah, it doesn't have any line sets in it. I wonder what the script ID is. There's an object ID. Should copy this. Oh, I can't select it. Oh, there I can. I can add a watch. Why can't I just copy? Let's ask the ChatGPT about core data. How can I override a method on a core data class that gets called whenever an instance of it is retrieved? Should I say fetched? That's the word they like to use, is fetched from persistence. Awake from fetch. Okay. Let's try it. Man, I am going to have to do this if this is necessary. Where do I put it? I think it's going to go in here. This is the NSManage object. Let's put it at the very top. Okay. Boom, like from fetch. Oh wow, it's gonna hit this on every time the synchronization is running. That's a lot of overhead. Yeah, synchronization logic needs to be rewritten. Is it synchronizing every second? Probably. Yeah, okay. Well, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm not going to, I want to make sure LineSets is accessed lazily. I'm not going to load them in every time it awakes from fetch. That's ridiculous. So LineSets is going to be a method, not a member. Yeah. Yeah. Script. Okay. Do I need to make this a property? No. I should be able to, again, make this an internal interface with its own, like this. Although this is class-based. So what if I do this? Yeah, I don't want this as a property. What happened? I don't want it as a property. Oh, do I have to say interface, or can I do this in implementation? That's what I was just looking at. Pretty sure I can just do this in implementation. I could say LineSets, right? Wait. I was just looking at this with the other class. Line scene reader view. And line scene reader view. Do I do it under implementation? I mean, what's the difference? I don't get the difference here. Under interface, under implementation. At some point I'll look this up and understand it, but I think I can just mimic this and it should work. let's do it under implementation, which is where I am. So I'm going to do this. So I'm guessing this is where we declare the body of. So where was LineSets? It's in here. Yeah. Bingo. It's not a property. It's just a straight up data member. All right. There's no synthesizing. I'm going to do that. We don't need this. But what we do need, use this underscore. That's the standard, right? Using underscore. Underscore, underscore. Okay, local transient data member. And we're going to make this LineSets. Bingo. We're going to copy this. I'm going to assume this is going to be if not sets equals nil. I really don't like if nil, if nils, if nulls, but that's what we're going to do. LineSets equals. Just create an empty for now. Oh, what am I doing? That's wrong. Where's the empty? The empty's up here somewhere. There it is. Mutable LineSets. I just want to create an empty object for now. This whole thing is me. We're obviously going to create a mutable set. I'm going to add into the set. We're going to read. Yeah. Yep, that's fine. That's fine. It's just lazy loading. That's all we're doing. Lazy loader, pretty simple. Let's add a big to-do. Load NS dictionary from start LineSets. And this is where we're going to delegate to the platform. Just like we did in store file, we're going to make a load here. And then we're going to say line sets. Line sets equals new line sets. And I kind of, yeah, how do I like to do this? Do I want to say not equals null? Yeah, that's fine. All right, I think this is going to break in a lot of places. And I need to add this method to the public interface, right? So that's gone. Goodbye. This after the instance types. Let's just add this at the very end. Returning a set of pointers or returning a pointer to a set of pointers? I think I return a pointer to a set of pointers, right? Yeah. Notice that sorted line sets as an array and line sets as a set. Why is it a set? I don't need to keep this a set. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Probably because this is coming off of core data in some way. All right, so I have this array line set. I'll try to match the syntax line sets. All right. We put that at the end. Let's put this at the end. Now transient, yeah. Put it at the very end. Really like extra blank lines, not a fan of it, but I guess that's fine. File it, see what happens. Missing semi. Set line sets, right. 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 Let's just add an assign function for now. And honestly, it's storing in a file and it's just going to read the file back. It's super inefficient, but no, we'll have it read it back. That's what it's going to do. It's basically what core data is doing, storing it. Next time it's accessed, it's going to do a read. It's probably cached in memory somewhere. I mean, we could add caching and all that sort of stuff, but that'll be a larger thing. So we're not going to assign it there. We've got to replace it with the fetch code, with the load the file code. So yeah. Yep. This needs to be replaced. Yeah. Replaced by script line sets loading back from the file it just stored. Okay. Yes, I did forget that. Thank you. And let's have a space. Wow, it all compiles. Amazing. Okay. So we don't really need this anymore, do we? Not really. Just thinking about keeping it around, because when I ultimately, this JSON thing is it's building up the line sets for the script from a backend retrieval. It's doing it for the purpose of synchronization, but this class doesn't know that. It's simply a utility being used. And I've already got this mute line sets here. Add object. Yeah, I'll just leave it intact for now. But the point is, I don't need a breakpoint here. Let's just keep going. Cells, here we go, current script. Line sets, count. We're gonna get 0, we're gonna get 0. We're gonna return nil, return 0. Current script equals script, and our script looks like this. Our line sets right now is this an empty array? I think it was nil before. Why is there a 0? Don't know. Interesting. Well, we do have a current script this time, right? Why can't the debugger tell me this? It probably depends on things that are properties, and it really doesn't like these just straight up data members. So it's like, I don't know what it is. It's non-nil, right? Yes. But if I do a star, it's not going to tell me anything, is it? No. Okay. I think I need to implement the loading the data from file so we can get this actual count there. I'm going to stop. This is a good breaking point. I think I'm going on to what, 3 hours? Something like that. Almost 3 hours. Where are we in time? No. We will resume. Let's save it. Back it up. So last time we were on WIP 5, now we're on WIP 6. I make a change to the dead stuff? Wait. Get diff. Oh, I was talking about that. Yeah, get checkout. Source dead. I don't want to change that. All right, let's take a look at what we got here. Yeah, so this whip 5 is going to replace the other whip. It's quite a bit of changes here. Okay. Git commit. Oh, what? Oh. Okay, whip 6. Change script. Line sets from data member to lazy loaded from property to a lazy loaded private member accessed by method. Good enough for now. That's what we're doing. Okay, I wish myself and I wish you all the best of luck.